What's up? Who would have thought that Team Fun would like be sitting here with Colin and Christy, like all like just like, isn't this a crazy thing?
Who would have thought we would be friends with the people we just raced around the world?
I was saying like from like a history standpoint. Season 5,
True.
That's what I was saying.
All right.
That's what I meant. That's
Little
what I
like
meant.
8-year-old Floyd looking at the TV screen.
Okay. No, literally 8-year-old
I
Floyd.
got hot ace.
I was 8 when we first on the race.
That's
Isn't that crazy?
Okay.
So
So thanks for being on our YouTube channel, Team Fun, Team High Vibes.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, and naming us Team High Vibes. Trying to figure out what our team name was going to be.
Yeah.
And when you put it
I
out
thought
there.
you did that.
No, you did that.
Go ahead.
I was just, congratulations, y'all.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, we're so happy that you won. This is just, it's been an incredible evening. We had like, it was that finale though. You know what I'm saying?
Man, it exceeded my expectations.
Yeah.
It was like intense.
Well, because you were saying last night, you were like, I didn't think this was going to be that exciting.
I kept thinking about the last leg. I knew the second to last leg would be really exciting. And then I kept thinking about the last leg and going, I don't know, we kind of just raced around, did all these random challenges in Detroit. Like, is it going to be that cool? But watching it, I was like, man, that was intense.
I knew what was going to happen, and I was like, I was freaking
My
out.
heart was literally like beating in my chest.
Yes.
You know, I had to remind myself to breathe. It was like I was holding my breath the whole time. Like, what's gonna happen?
And then you like say breathe on screen. And you're like,
Oh yeah, that's right. Speak to me, Pastor Christy.
Yeah.
So let's just dive in. Do you have any questions? I have a few.
well, yeah, go. Yeah, you start.
I mean, the first one I just wanted to dive into is like, people probably want to know about that roadblock in London, that decoding roadblock. Like, I mean, whatever you want to talk about, because I can already see.
No, just thinking back to it, you know, first of all, just when I read it and I knew that it was a decoder type thing. Okay, so when we were the week that before we started the race, and everybody was doing Sudoku puzzles.
Yep.
And you guys were all doing like expert level. We're like doing beginner level together, and we
not
can't
able to do it.
We can't do
Like,
it.
how do these things work?
This is not good. So we open up a decoding. It's the leg right before you're getting into the top 3,
Yeah.
and I'm like, and he's like, "It's you. It's all you." I'm like, "Okay."
No, it said, who can't keep a secret? That was our only thing.
Yeah, but
Was that the?
It said, who can't keep a secret? And they didn't want to tell us. Jamal was there, but he didn't want to tell us
What it
the
was.
thing
Yeah.
was. When Corey and Nick and Vic arrived, I told them it's a code breaking thing.
I know. I was
So you
shocked
know.
that you did that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I
Why
guess.
do you do that?
I don't know, just because it's like, we were doing that to the end.
Yeah, you were.
we wanted to do that with
Yeah.
you guys.
I-
Like, hey, we're getting directions over here.
Yeah,
We're
we
looking
know.
at a map.
Yeah, honestly, our top 3 in our minds was us, Tyler, and Corey, and you guys. And so we were like, let's help each
Same.
other get into the top 3.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where that was. But so
Yeah.
So we didn't know. It just said,
yeah,
who
I guess
can't
we
keep a
didn't
secret?
know.
Yeah.
And then when I read it, I mean, I'm literally like, oh shit, you know. And on the way there, just okay, I've got to get centered, and I can figure it out. I will get it. You know, it's all good. But I was scared, and probably
She likes to live in her right brain more than her left brain. That's a
Yeah,
very left brain thing.
yeah, yes.
Wait, left brain's the
Decoding is-
creative one, or
No.
analytical one. That's
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I really don't exercise my left brain that much. You know,
Yeah.
I'm usually like more right brain.
Yeah.
So, but I can do it. Anyway, so, and my biggest fear, of course, and I really think that this whole thing was meant to be, because like I realized in that moment, which you guys probably already know when you're doing it, but you know, you're doing a roadblock and it's on your
Well,
shoulders.
yes, and that's
I
your biggest
mean, you
fear.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100% biggest
Like,
fear.
we're gonna
Yeah.
lose this race, and it's gonna be because of me, because I can't figure this out. Because
Yeah.
I mean, Colin is like, I mean, this guy.
I had the same experience when I
it's-
was doing the karaoke thing in Vietnam. I was like, I cannot tell what they're saying. I can't hear any differentiation. My mouth is not going to be able to make those sounds.
Mhm.
Like, that was the first 10 or 15 minutes I was in there, and I was like, I can't I cannot decipher what they're saying to even
Right, because you're
attempt
off with lyrics.
to
Yeah.
even attempt to make my mouth do what their thing is saying. Like, I just can't, this is not my, like, that part of my brain is very underdeveloped. Understanding the words coming out of people's mouth in English is difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we'll be watching TV, and like, if I miss the first couple words of something someone's saying, all of a sudden it's just sounds like blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what are we listening to?
So in that case, it's probably, so you were the person to do this roadblock, because then would you have had trouble listening to that word and being like,
For sure.
yeah,
Oh, the first
Like,
part of it.
trying to count the 15th letter, this, like, potentially so.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm
Although-
saying, I can relate, because I had that experience where I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to blow this for us.
Yeah, but I never doubted you for a second.
Well, good thing.
You know.
And I never doubted you for a second.
There you go. So we get there, and the first part of it is not a problem.
Yeah.
And in fact, Corey and I kind of compare notes, like these are the words you got.
Yeah.
Yep, these are the words I got. And really kind of like figuring out the way to do it. What we got that. It's just somehow, and I think it was some kind of mental block in my head. I had jumbled and gotten certain things backwards. And Dunkirk, like I hadn't watched any of the movies. I was not familiar. It like Leo, if just watching the movie and being familiar, it would have just stood off the page for me.
But that's a weird
But-
combination of letters.
Yes,
You don't know.
yes.
I get it. Yeah.
And so I just kind of get stuck in my head because meanwhile, Corey and I are working together. And so this is interesting behind the scenes. Leo leaves, he gets it right away. Vic comes in and he starts working on the code and he's so off. I mean, like way off base. And meanwhile, Corey leaves to go try it. He's like, I'm just gonna try it a first try. I'll come back, if I get it, or if I don't get it, obviously. And I actually work with Vic and I show him everything that Corey and I had come up with.
Okay.
And I mean, it was like, he was a whole other direction, a whole other, gone down a whole other rabbit hole that would have probably had him stuck for a while.
Yeah.
And anyway, I guess the motivation for me to do that was we just always had, there were certain teams we wanted to work with and get into the top 3, but we also kind of felt like you get what you give. And there was that part of me that said, hey, helping, this is going to come back in the form of taxi karma, or it's going to come back in the form of the challenges are so effing hard
Yeah.
that
they're gonna struggle.
There's going to be a struggle, or there's going to be the opportunity for us to come back. Like the cooperative components just work when you're vibrating at that level, and we wanted to be more cooperative than competitive.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it. Corey came back and didn't get it right. Meanwhile,
okay. Yeah.
Vic figured it out and was like, see ya!
Yeah, you helped him with like the key,
Yeah.
right? You helped him with the key, and
Yeah.
then he didn't flip the 2 letters like you had. or
Yes,
whatever.
yeah. And he gets it, and I just look at him, he looks at me, and he's like,
Gone.
sorry.
Yeah.
And
Bye.
and I didn't hold it against him because it's like, look, I have my own motivations for helping him, but it's not his obligation to help us back.
Right.
So I was not expecting it. There was no hard feelings.
Yeah.
And we talked about that also on camera, but I guess it just ended up not being the storyline, so you just never see any of
Yeah.
that. And then Corey comes back, and I guess maybe he figures out what he got wrong, and then.
And when he left, he kind of gave you that little hint or whatever they showed on screen, and that kind of, it seemed like you didn't really process what he said, or?
No, I wasn't really processing
Yeah.
it. It was like, because for some reason I had all of it correct, like the way we were decoding.
Yeah.
The words were jumbled. I couldn't figure it out. So
Wow.
I'm there by myself for like 2 hours.
No.
Yeah.
You're lying.
You don't
So,
see that on
I
screen.
started my stopwatch when Leo's helicopter took off, because I wanted to just have an idea of how much time we were trying to make up. And so Leo took off, Vic took off maybe 7-8 minutes after Leo's helicopter, and then another 6-7 minutes after that, Corey's helicopter took off. And then when we took off, my stopwatch was at like 1 hour 47 minutes.
Wow.
So you may not have been by
Wow.
yourself for 2 hours or
But
whatever, but we
it
were
was-
more than 1.5 hours behind the 3rd place team,
Wow.
and 1 hour 47 minutes behind the 1st place team.
Wow.
Yeah,
They
look
make
at
it
that.
seem like we're like 20 minutes behind. Like
Yeah.
we were
It would have been greater to you
Like, I
to
was-
like be clear that you're like an hour.
Yeah.
I
behind.
for sure thought they were going to be like
Dramatize
elapsed
that.
time.
Yeah.
You know, and like I'm hanging out in that grass for an hour,
Yeah.
47 minutes.
Tell us a little bit about how you were keeping your mindset like where you felt you needed to be.
Yeah, you know, I felt like the most helpful thing that I could be doing is just sending her positive energy and love and envisioning her running out excited and envisioning her like feeling her feeling of relief when she gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just visualizing that and like sending that to her and knowing that like it was a really good practice and like non-attachment to the outcome, more enjoying the journey. Because I was like, like I don't know what's para el bien de todos. I don't know what's for the good of all. You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't necessarily
going back, our intention was, you know, we wanted to inject a higher level of consciousness inside of reality television. And if that meant we also got to win $1 million, bonus!
That's right.
Para el bien de todos. But it's the story, it's the journey, it's what's being told, it's what's being transmitted, not just through us, through you guys, through every team on the show. So maybe it's for the good of all that we don't end up making it into
Yeah.
the top 3.
Exactly. And so it was like this sense of going, what I can trust is that pretty much, well, like every single thing that's ever happened in my life, with a certain amount of time, I can look back on it and go, that actually worked out for the best.
Yeah.
That was exactly how it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't get wrapped around the actual stuff. If you can just like get past it, broaden your perspective, raise your vibes, then all of a sudden you look back and go, oh, that was just the medicine I needed at that time, right? And so I could have faith in that, and I could have faith that like, okay, like I have visualized us winning this race so many times, like what it feels like to run up to the mat and see Phil and have him tell us that we did all these countries, and like I have lived that. And you know, we have several practices that we do where we like get into these really heightened energy states and then like paint the picture of our future reality with sound vibration, you know, and feeling it and seeing it. So I was like, man, but who knows? Like that's kind of what my ego wants, is to win. But maybe that's like not what's for the best good of all, you know? And so I know that whatever is going to be for the best good of all is us feeling good and being grateful for this moment. And so I just tried to like stay in that. And it was like, maybe we're going to just do some unbelievable come from behind leg where there's these really hard challenges and we somehow can figure it out, but other people can't, and we just catch up. That would be awesome. Maybe that happens, but maybe it doesn't.
But we
And,
talk
you
about
know,
that in the helicopter ride, and I think it was a godsend that we had that helicopter ride
Like
back into
space.
town.
Yep.
Yes.
It's like a half-hour helicopter
To
ride. Wow.
decompress, and during that time we completely detach from, not only are we likely not going to win the $1 million, we're likely not going to get into the top 3, and like let's be okay with that.
I
And
was not resigned to that.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure this is not the way this
no,
is.
I mean,
Like,
but it was
you
like,
figured it out. You
But
cracked
to
the code.
accept
Let's
it
go
helps
race
you
this.
let
yes,
go.
leg.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly. And then, but anything can happen. So obviously, when this helicopter lands, we're hitting the ground running,
Yeah.
you know, and we were full speed ahead.
Blazed through that lake.
Yeah.
I mean, the speed with which we got to the boat, and then we got to Piccadilly Square, and then we got to the rowing. Like I saw like there was no walking. There was no. I mean, it was like I had a map. So we knew exactly what bridge to get off at. We knew what turns we were going to take to get to the square. There was no asking for directions. Like our camera and sound guy, the sound guy couldn't keep up. He was like, "It's okay." He hopped in a cab and
Oh, no
came
way.
and met us.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like, it was like full blown, full speed. And so when we arrived to the boats, and we were probably arrived to the boats maybe 30 or 40 minutes after those teams had been kind of trying the rowing. To see other teams at a challenge,
Yeah, you're like, oh wow, we're fully in
it
it
just
now.
fully energized
Yeah.
us, and we're
Yeah.
like, this is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we have a chance because they haven't figured this out yet.
Yeah.
And like, theoretically, we're just gonna hop in this boat and do it. I know how freaking hard the rowing boats are.
Yeah, we're like rowing. I mean, it's made for us.
Yeah. I paddleboard. I paddleboard. It's good.
How many tries did it take you, do you think?
I think they showed, what
A
was it,
lot.
7th attempt or something like
Yeah,
that?
a lot.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We were there quite a while.
And they don't give you a handicap, like it was just like you
Nothing.
got that
They
1
showed you.
minute, it's that 1
That's
minute.
right. And
Yeah.
so-
And the wind picked up. So we were
Oh.
straight into the wind.
No way.
Which probably didn't like
A huge-
hurt our speed as much as it hurt our
Balance.
ability to keep straight.
Oh.
Because you had to go and land between the two yellow buoys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I
You're
kept
going
having to like
backwards. Yeah.
check because a couple of our attempts still don't think we were inside of a minute, but I was kept having to like adjust to try and get between these two buoys. So the wind was kind of at an angle, and so it would kind of be like row 3 times and then once with just one oar,
Wow.
and then 3 times and then once with the left oar to try and keep it. You know, I don't know how to row those boats.
Also
you know?
added, we realized, so you did have to use a lot of your core to stabilize, and we realized that the way that it was adjusted was for someone who's like 6 feet tall. So for the first at least hour, I mean, I pulled, you know, like a muscle here. I had broken my wrist snowboarding in March.
Oh,
So
shit.
trying
Oh,
to
shit.
stabilize that and just like hold my wrist straight in
Yeah.
order to hold the oars. So we finally adjust the feet. That makes a big difference because I'm like, I can barely even touch this thing, you
Yeah.
know? And the girl who's helping us was a badass Olympic
Olympic medalist.
But
Yeah.
she figures out, oh yeah, let's adjust your, you know, so I don't know if that was happening for the other teams either, but that made a big
And it
difference.
seemed like the amount of time it was going to take us to learn how to row in sync, perfectly in sync, would be like a week of practice together,
Yeah.
right? And so I was like, man, I wonder, my guess is that 60 seconds over this length of 200-meter course is probably like a pretty slow time.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to be expected to be some pro rowers,
Olympic
right?
level.
And so I kind of like try to work our instructor, you know, they're not allowed to say or anything, but I was like, I mean, 60 seconds, she'd probably do this course in half that time, you know? Like,
I'm seeing the
Yeah.
you know, and
response.
she was like, well, no, but, you know, like, basically like, I was like, okay, so 34 seconds, you know? Like, I was like trying to read, like, how fast did you do this?
Just
And
Like a single person is what
A
you
grasp.
yeah, or like her by herself
Yeah,
doing
exactly.
it, whatever.
Get a grasp on what's possible.
And it seemed
Yeah.
like it was about half the time that we had to do it in. So I was like, I think if you stabilize us with your oars and I
Yeah.
power us and we're not trying to oar, like row together,
Yeah.
maybe that would work. And I think that was our
She
saving
did
grace.
afterwards, after it was done and we
She
got
was
it, she
like,
was like, that was
"That
the
was
smartest way to go. That was
Yes.
likely the only way you were gonna get
Wow.
Wow. Did you ever consider switching? Or were you just like, no, this is
Once we had been there, so Nicole and Victor left not too long after we had gotten there, maybe 15 minutes. And we hadn't really given it a full shot yet. And so we stayed for like another 10 to 15 minutes because we're in it. And I'm still, at that time, I was so confident we're going to get this. But once they were gone for like 15 minutes, I was like, what's leaving going to do? But just
Yeah.
put us 15
Exactly.
minutes behind them at the next
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
Like they got to travel to another likely very difficult challenge. Let's just stick this out
Yeah.
and get it. You know, so no, we never considered. It was like it's
Yeah.
do or die.
Yeah.
That's
We're
true.
gonna
Yeah.
get this in 60 seconds
Yeah.
or we're done.
Yeah.
This is the chance that the universe gave us to get back in this thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And I feel like sometimes with challenges like that, I mean, with like the coin challenge, I think that's like the one like seemingly impossible detour
Yeah,
or
from the
something.
season, yeah.
but
Well, that one was
usually-
easier to know because these other two guys, you know, Chris and Brett,
Yeah.
was there and they were doing it. And
Yeah.
we saw that people were accomplishing the
Can't be that
poem
hard.
thing.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, like they just told us they haven't found a coin for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we knew that we were like 3 hours behind them coming
Yeah.
into Croatia.
Yeah.
So that's a different story. Where it's like, okay, like let's cut bait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were, poor guys, they were pot vested is the problem.
Yeah.
You know, they had,
That's right.
they had found just enough.
Just enough.
Yeah, to be
just
like,
like-
okay, we can do
like
this.
it's gotta be possible.
That's right.
And that's true. That's what I was gonna say is like about these challenges, like just when you're like wanting to give up or wanting to like move forward to the or
Yes.
switch or whatever, that's kind of like that threshold that you have to pass through, and then like all of a sudden it unlocks.
That's right.
And but
And,
then
and is it like
for that?
is it like a thing that you're trying to figure out how to accomplish and do, and it's like some like a juggling challenge or something that like or like slackline. We kept dreaming that there'd be a slackline challenge. 15 feet on a slackline. But those things can feel like impossible. Click, I got it.
Yeah.
You know. But the needle in the haystack challenges, I feel like are a little bit different because
Which are
it's
like my favorite kind of challenges.
Yeah, what
Really?
kind of challenge?
I
hate
Yeah,
because I
I
take
think-
1,000 chocolates
He
and
gets
I
excited.
love
He
it
gets
because I think
excited.
it's
Life.
it's like because I like kind of what you were saying where you were visualizing Christy coming out being excited.
Yes.
Like throughout the whole challenge, I'm like, man, I'm gonna open this next chest and it's gonna be it, and I'm gonna freak out.
Yeah, that probably works.
And then I also think part of it too is like people who are more stressed by those challenges will like
Yes.
be stressed, and I'll like
Take
draw on
forever.
that stress and be like, oh, like, this is fun for me. I like don't really know why those are fun for me. I just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm such a
I
control
love
freak, I
challenges.
guess, that like I want it to be on me one way or the
Yeah.
other.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I
Not be
didn't
random.
realize that Chris and Brett had found the goblet and 3
Because
coins.
they said we haven't found anything.
They just said we haven't found anything for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And
So
I
it's
was
a good thing that they did.
we hadn't found a single coin.
Yeah.
We found the goblet pretty quick. We hadn't found a single coin. And I'm like, they haven't found a coin in 2 hours?
Yeah.
We gotta find 5?
Yeah.
And my detector kept going off, but then there was no coin. Or there'd be some little piece of metal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is like, we're not gonna get through this quickly. Like, I haven't found a single coin. Like, we're out.
Yeah. Yeah, I have another question. I kind of zoomed out, but
Well, so then we go to the Piccadilly
Yeah.
Square, which I thought they were going to cut that whole thing out
I
because
thought they were too. I did too.
You know,
No, not Piccadilly Square. That was the Piccadilly Circus.
Oh, the market.
the market,
Market thing,
yeah,
yeah,
which
I
I mean,
thought they would cut out.
yeah, I thought they
But
would
it
cut
didn't
out.
change any placements,
It
I
didn't
think.
change any placements,
Uh-huh.
and actually we were there quite a bit before Nick and Vic. But when I saw how they were making it look neck and neck, which is good TV,
Yeah.
so then it made sense.
Like, where are those purple boots? I'm dancing. I
Yeah,
heard it was in
that-
a place that we were
that was-
dancing. Let's go out of this
Yeah.
place.
It makes it seem like that. We were there for like 15 minutes.
Oh, really?
in that disco. And we're like, maybe there's another disco. I cannot find these boots. We were just blind to that glass
Oh my
case.
God.
Yeah.
We were up and down that
I-
escalator.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
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 Anyway.
That's funny.
Yeah, the stress blinds you in a way that you can't.
Yes.
You just can't feel like get in there.
And there's no
so
way you can
much.
replicate that
Yeah.
or train for that in a lot of ways.
And
You
that-
just get to experience it.
That day, I mean, I remember at the rest period, like after it was all said and done, Lisa, who
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
our, you know,
Yeah.
hit
Oh.
stop mama.
Mama.
I would stare off into the distance, just zone out because I couldn't believe the day that we had just had. And she'd
Uh-huh.
come over, Christy, are you okay? Oh yeah, I'm fine. Within like a minute or two, I'm zoned out again. She's like, Christy, you there? Are you okay? Yeah. But it was just
Yeah.
so surreal the way things unfolded
Yeah.
that day. And going back to the roadblock, I feel like it was just destiny, like it was meant to be. There was this whole kind of the story arc, like a storyline of in season 5, you didn't have that certain amount of roadblocks that each person
Yeah.
has to do. So strategically, we just said Colin because he's so capable. And it wasn't that I wasn't. It's just that strategically, hey, we know that you're
You don't know what
likely
it's
going to be able
maybe
to.
physical, you know.
So in this case, it was like it gets put on me getting into the top 3 and facing that fear and then really having that come from behind. You know, I think
That's great. Yeah.
the journey, the experience of living that
Yeah.
and having him hold space for me and be there for me in the helicopter ride
Yeah.
and really be that strong divine masculine. I'm grateful for that experience. I think we
Yeah.
were meant to go through that experience.
Yeah.
It really empowered
It's
us.
medicine.
I think it ultimately is what helped boost us into winning the race.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we were talking about this at breakfast a little bit, like what do you think was the issue with the safe that he was
So I
having?
think what happened was, I remember like getting the 4 numbers, going in and seeing the size of the safe, and knowing just from like normal combo locks, like a normal 3-digit combo lock, you have to be like pretty accurate. And I'm thinking, this is a massive bank vault. Like this is not going to be some like simple thing, even if you know the code. So they both kind of like looked at the instructions really fast and then ran to their safes, right? Leo was already at the safe, but Tyler looks at the instructions real quick. And I stood at those instructions for like 2 or 3 minutes, like really reading through it, taking a breath, slowing down, read through it again, and then walked over, accomplished the task the first try. But it was like pretty detailed. And I think what happened with Leo is that it says one of the instructions, and I have to like freeze frame it and look at it, but I think one of the final instructions to get to the last number, which was number 1, was like, because it was like at least 5 turns, then stop, then 4 turns, then 3 turns, then 2 turns. That's how the thing went. And then I think you're supposed to stop at 1, right? Then it says turn the wheel till it stops. Once you undo the combo, that allows the wheel to turn, but you have to turn the wheel a whole bunch, and that unscrews the bolt that closes the door. Then you can grab the handle and open the deal. And I think he just combined those last 2 and thought, keep turning the dial until it stops. And then he had it in his head, and that's right. And you saw that with the poem, right? Where like he had it in his head that like I'm saying could, but really you're saying with kun.
Touristic,
That's right.
I was 100% sure I had that word right.
That's right. And and that's that like I guess knower mentality that we all fall into, right? Once you've kind of made the decision, well, it can't be that, because I know I'm doing that part right. I know I'm doing this right.
Like our eggs are not cracked.
Then it's
Definitely not the eggs.
Then it's not until you can like re-examine those parts of your life and go, oh, in those areas like where I think I've got it figured out, maybe my areas of my biggest blind spot. And so that in that moment, that was just his blind spot, was not realizing that it was not to keep turning the dial, but to, once you did the code, stop on the last number, then turn the thing.
And in
just that simple little thing.
In the roadblock that I was doing in the previous leg, that knowing that, how I actually ultimately get it is I just throw all that away and I start from scratch.
Really?
Start all over. And when I started all over and redid it, I didn't mix up the letters, and I saw it right away, it stuck out, and that's how I got it.
So I was gonna ask, like, how do you, I think that like certainty mentality, especially like in the corporate world, or just like having, being in the know, like being
Knowledge is a bitch.
Don't be knowledge's bitch.
Right?
It can bite you.
And so how have you formed that into a way that is like a cue to like kind of step back, or do you have that, or?
I think there's like certain kind of like core pillars that I know to always be the case, which is that like things always work out for the best if you let them, if you're like a cooperative component. Authenticity, vulnerability, transparency, there's these things, and like you don't know shit. Like we know what we know in this human experience as the ants in the ant farm, right? But like we don't have full visibility from this density or this dimension of where we are, of really what is this energetic dance that's really going. We can have a concept. We know that like it's all in the name of love, and it's all in the name of expansion of consciousness as a whole. But like it's just something that I always have to know in my heart, that like whatever I think may be the case, whatever I think I know, may just be temporary. May be true today, but may not be true tomorrow as things expand. And so I find like anytime I start getting stuck, we call it like getting stuck in a cul-de-sac, or building a sandcastle around some idea or concept, then all of a sudden you have to start protecting that sandcastle. You've put a flag in the ground, you wrote a book about it, now I've got to like hold on to that. And it's like, well, maybe at that time that was the thing, and that totally worked for you. But now, like 3 years later, you feel like you can't expand beyond that because I wrote this book about it, or I did this, I said that thing, I stuck a flag in the ground.
Like identity is wrapped in it.
Yes, and that can be so, dangerous to expansion.
That's it.
I don't know how vulnerable you want to be about this, but obviously a lot of fans.
I love being vulnerable.
Let's do it. A lot of fans want to know. 2003 Colin and Christy completely different than 2018, 2019 Colin and Christy. So like, what was? I mean, this is a big topic, and we don't have so much time. But like, I guess like, what was the moment where you started feeling a transformation, or started feeling like you had to change? Was it when you first watched yourself on the race, or you kind of walk us through?
No, it was
really
years later.
Okay.
I was still stuck in, they just gave me a bad edit, So first and foremost, I think what's interesting about it is that while it looks like a complete transformation, 2003 Colin was like a super high vibing, super loving, helped
Very similar
every
to
team.
Yeah, I remember you told me
Exactly
that.
as
I
much as I
remember
help people on this race
Yeah.
is how much I help people on that race.
Yeah.
Stood in front of buses to not let buses leave other teams that would have been sure death for them.
Right.
Right?
Nicole and Brandon
Yeah.
would have been eliminated.
Yeah,
He
and-
stood in front of a bus that was going to get on the road for like
Yeah.
12 hours.
But I
They
mean,
missed that
and there's
bus.
like-
They're done,
They're
yeah.
over.
Yeah. So but it was
Wow.
like every leg, always
Yeah.
helping. Oh, it looks like this. Hey, and so
Little information
but-
is such a gift.
That's
Yeah.
right. But the difference was, and so like primarily high vibing individual, loved life, always laughing, always joking around. But I had these blind spots, and I had this ego and attachment to being right and like, being smart and like knowing better and like being more competitive.
Intense.
And so I had these like little shadow aspects that I just didn't have visibility or awareness of that would cause me to like feel, like I was being wronged, persecuted, victimized by Christy or others or the race or whatever. And then I would just get so defensive and so like, self-righteous, right? And so really that's the biggest difference is it was
Resilience.
you can talk about like what the kind of breaking point was, but it was years and years later realizing like, oh, okay, now I can look back on that race experience and see like it wasn't just the editing, bro. No, you have a fucking super hot temper. And like I remember thinking doing the race when I would like blow up about something, I remember thinking, well, when we all watch this, they're gonna see just how persecuted I was. And that's
Wow.
like, I'm gonna be vindicated when we watch this, and I'd be in that moment,
Wow.
fully knowing that, not just thinking
Wow.
that, knowing that,
Yeah.
right? That certainty mentality,
Uh-huh.
like, well, this will all come out when we watch it. And then not only was it watching the race and like pointing it at editing to say, oh, that wasn't the case because of editing, it was me watching myself going, oh no, bro, you weren't right at all.
Yeah.
Like, forget the editing. Like, from this place of higher vibration, sitting in my living room with all my friends watching the race, not being in that victimized channel of frequency, right? Now, my reality is like, that dude on the screen is way out of line. And he is like, totally unaware and unconscious right now. I didn't use those terms at that time, but I was like, that dude is wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, but I am that dude. And I remember 6 months ago being in that experience thinking I was so right. So that was my first time to be like,
There's a big awareness.
maybe when I think I know, maybe I don't know. You know what I mean? That was like the beginning of that.
But you really weren't ready to fully accept that. Like it was still.
That's a tough thing for
I don't
anyone
want to look at that. That's
accept.
looking
Yeah.
at the shadow, right?
Yeah.
That's looking at your shadow, and
Yeah.
so it's much easier to sort of project onto the other people in our lives,
Yeah.
and play the blame game than it is to really go inward and
Yeah.
look at your part in the play. So
Totally, man.
we kind of hit rock bottom. He was traveling a lot. I mean, his career really took off,
Yeah.
with DJI, and I was his director of operations, and that was a nightmare working together. Like, oh my God. We were in school
I was a
together.
nightmare.
He was the worst boss ever.
I think I had to like prove that I wasn't giving like preferential treatment to my lover who was like second in command. So I had to like be extra hardcore businessman with her.
Right.
It was real bad.
Yeah, everyone else loved
Poor
working for
thing.
him, but
I'm
I was
sorry,
just like, this
Christy
is,
Woods.
why are you talking to the camera?
I'm sorry. I apologize for those guys. This is a time capsule.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things had just really they had heightened. He was traveling. This was no longer DJI. You'd sold shares. This was 3DR, but you were traveling in Europe. You'd been gone for weeks. Our house flooded.
Oh, dang.
We had to move out while they were fixing
Wow.
it.
Were you in
And-
Texas at that time?
Yeah, we were in
Yeah,
Texas,
okay.
in
Living in a
Austin.
hotel room.
But I was in the hotel room with kids. They were bouncing off the walls. I mean,
Dang.
I had my car, electric car, but there was no electric hookup to, I literally almost ran out of electric juice, like going to our house, meeting Achilles who'd get off the bus at our house, and then we'd drive to the hotel. Just the way I had to kind of work the schedule because it was me by myself. He
It
was,
was tough.
and we weren't really communicating a whole lot when he would travel. So I was really alone. I was lonely. And there wasn't the intimacy in our relationship that is really what you crave when you're in relationship. And didn't have the language, it was just sort of like, didn't have the resources, but just this angst of something's not right here.
And there's so much built up resentment and so many things that hadn't
So much
been
water under the
communicated.
bridge.
So much water under the
Yeah,
bridge.
we didn't know how to really talk and share like what was going on. We had not learned how to do that yet.
Yeah.
Also, his dad had passed away, so he was, when you lose a parent and you haven't fully resolved that relationship either, that you really internalize that. We learned that because after he lost his dad, my mom passed away a year later, and my dad passed away a year later. So we've been through that experience, but this was the first time with his dad. And so he was also really
totally in denial that I had to like process feelings. It was like, cool, that's what happens. People die. It's all good. It happens every day. Whatever. Move on with life.
and does what a lot of people do, which
Right.
is jump into work and distract. How can I distract myself? And being in relationship with you is really only gonna bring up all the things that I don't want to look at and that I don't want to deal with. So there was that extra thing. We're living, in this hotel, he's traveling, and I have literally what I call this dark night of the soul. I mean, it was like down to, because I was so attached to Colin and my relationship with him, like being that person for me, that like one of the only people in my circle of trust. And so the idea that he would no longer be in my life, or that it would just crush me, right? That just crushed me. And yet it was, in that moment, it was like, I had to think of the worst possible thing. Like, I'm living on the streets with my kids, homeless. I'm okay with that because I'm done. Like, this is over. And really having that resolve, you just relax. You breathe for the first time in years. And, all I could say is there was just a flood of consciousness that just came into my body. It was like an awareness where I could start to see from a much higher level all the things that were happening in our relationship. And I could also see my part in the play. I wasn't totally innocent. And it's not about innocence. It's just that I have my own shadow aspects too, and all the things I was projecting onto Colin, and all the ways that I was playing the blame game, and all the ways that I wasn't open to him, open to receiving when he was in a place of giving. And just how we were in this tit for tat, what have you done for me lately, level one relationship that unfortunately, a lot of relationships live in, especially relationships with people who've been together for a long time, because there is that water under the bridge.
Stuck in the scorekeeping.
Yeah, exactly. You get stuck in your cul-de-sac, right? And my identity's around all the reasons I'm right and you're wrong. And there was a video I was sitting on in my email that had been sent that for some reason I just hadn't watched it. Probably had been in my months, that his stepmom had sent me. Close around the time his dad passed away, and I opened that video and watched it, and it was Christy Marie Sheldon speaking at Awesomeness Fest, and she was talking about energy and vibration and Dr. Emoto's, I don't know if you're familiar with the experiment with the water, and my whole body is just lighting up. I mean, it is just, if you're an empath, your body has consciousness. It speaks to you when you're watching something that is your truth. And I knew immediately. I was studying for the GRE. I was going to go back to school and get my PhD in psychology. I knew I wanted to work with people. I had been his director of operations. I was like, I'm done with that. When we sold the shares there and he went to 3D, I was like, I'm going to do my own thing. This is what I want to do. When I watched that video, somehow that led to another on life coaching. And I just knew. I said, this is what I'm meant to do. Like, this is what I was made to do. This, I've been learning, and my journey's been about this. And I even remember talking to Colin the next day, and I said, this is going to sound really weird, but life coaching's sort of a stepping stone. That's where I'm going. I'm no longer going back to school, and I think I'm gonna be some type of spiritual teacher. And that sounds really weird because at that time that was just not our life, but I just knew it. Intuitively in that moment, this is my truth, this is where it's going. I don't know, this is the beginning of it, I don't know where it's headed, but this is it. And in the process, I started my first certification program like within 2 weeks. And I started applying all of the practices I was learning to myself and to our relationship. And I started transforming. He saw me transforming, he was transforming, and then that just started
feeding each other.
Till all of a sudden, you know, a year later, you're looking at each other going, wow, this isn't even the same relationship. You know, this is totally different. We also had the opportunity to go to Peru and drink ayahuasca, the medicine of the Peruvian people. And that is a very healing medicine that will open you up and allow you to go inward and really face your shadow and face some of those demons inside of you and allow you to heal. That's what that medicine is all about. So we were both willing to do it, and that just set us on a whole other trajectory. And the rest is history. And then we go back on
And then Amazing Race, and roadblocks, and detours,
and drum sections, fouling, record building.
Anyways.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. Yes.
And I said it at the finish line, but like, I mean, I've been watching this show. I've been really, in a lot of ways, forming my whole philosophy of life around like how this show is played and how life is played, and how we do this. And you two really set an example of like this collaborative mindset works. Like, look, it works. You won the Amazing Race in a way that no one else in the history of the Amazing Race has ever played the game. Like that, it's you truly, like, it looks kitschy on TV where you're like, let's all just hold hands and like feel the power of love of the universe, you know, and people are probably kind of like, what the heck is he doing?
I was like,
but
watching it. I was vibing at a different place than my normal day to day.
In the moment, I'm like, okay, we'll see how this plays out. Hold hands, let's do it.
But like, that's the truth is, like, this is the world that you're living in and have been living in for so long at this point that it's, you're not just like trying to say like, oh, look world, like, look what we've, like, some ideas that we've been playing with. You're really showing what has been working for you, and then really showing this works. And I mean, I was like definitely crying at the finish line with just joy to see for the first time. Like, it really felt like love prevailed in this game, where so many times, like, I mean, no offense to past winners, but like sometimes it's just the teams that hurt.
When everyone's kind of participating in it to some degree, you know what I mean? And it was such an experiment.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say that. I mean, even just the way the events unfolded for us to go back on the show, the fact that we hadn't watched the show in 15 years. We watched it for the first time a year ago, and with our kids, and we thought, oh, this is great because they'll see us as we were once upon a time, and we can show that people can shift, and just feeling into the awesomeness of what it is to run the race. But when we decided and thought, oh, we should do that, but really it was this, you know, as a coach, what I've learned is you can't, understanding the faith, right, and redefining faith as like just whatever you believe in. That's where you're investing your faith. So if you believe that you're a loser or you can't do this, like, that's where you're investing your faith. And so for us to go and live and breathe it, we live and breathe it in our everyday life. So our faith is so built up around working at this energetic level because we see it happening. We see the cooperative components coming together. So it's an experience that you have to have. You can't learn it in a book.
And once you've experienced it enough times, it requires less leap of faith, blind faith. Now you have faith with proof. You've seen it so many times.
Yeah, you just there's the knowing, like, everything works out. Pare obediente todos, and we can believe in that. And we realize that this is a show, not tell. You cannot tell someone, like, from a pulpit how it works or read a book. This is an experience. Exactly. And so it became so obvious that our platform, for us to be able to show, not tell, would be to go on the Amazing Race and put ourselves inside that container, inside that pressure cooker, so that we have to walk the walk, right?
Yeah.
Because there is no choice.
You're going home.
You're going home. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's really the biggest.
Right.
That was the big intention of why we went back
And
on
you
the
did
race.
it, and I think it's amazing that you got to like blast that through the reality television screen. I hope people have been like receptive to those ideas. And yeah, like when I got back from the race, people are like, how was it? Like, what was going on? And honestly, like the first thing I would tell people was like, these people, Colin and Christy, like they just impacted me in this way, and like it was hard to like tell the whole story without like revealing that you won.
How ironic, because when we got home, we were like, these people, they were so awesome. We were literally having identical experiences.
That's why we were so excited to have you guys come to Love Fest and Tyler and Corey, because there was like, you know, it connecting at a deeper level, like because we also knew, like, going into that container, it's not just about us, it's about everyone there. The teams are a reflection of, you know, everything out here is a reflection of what's in here. And so it's you talked about the race being a microcosm of the macrocosm. Well, to me, every single team, like, you are a projection of an aspect. You live in me. You live in me.
The black party.
Yeah. That is the super badass boxing part of me. I have that in me,
If you really think about it, it's like, if you really think about it, it's like, I am you, just trying out what it's like to be you. That's it. And you are me, just trying out what it's like to be me. Because we are one consciousness, trying out and experiencing ourselves through the eyes of others.
So wanting to connect at that deeper level with the other people on the race was very important to us. And we knew, we were like, in the beginning, it's probably going to be like, what kind of reverse psychology are these people playing with us?
Honestly, I completely thought that. I was 100% honest.
I'm curious about that.
Because I was like, yo, I've seen you on that original season. Like, I think they're consciously trying to like put on this. I didn't think it's not that I thought you were fake. I didn't think you were fake at all. But I was more like, I consciously thought you were just trying to throw us off.
We figured that's how people, and that was okay, because we were like, we're living our truth, and eventually they will know.
And like by halfway, I was like, oh, tight. So real quick, I mean, just really quickly, you emerge from the tunnel, see an empty finish line with Phil. What's the energy? What's going through your mind? Emotions?
It's surreal. It's surreal because, like Colin said earlier, we had imagined this happening so many times. I mean, we were practicing quantum visualization before every single leg, and obviously that included running to the mat. And it helped that we had done it before. Like, we had actually lived running to the mat with people around clapping their hands. Like, we knew what it looked like. So I had imagined it so many times and what it would feel like, and just felt into the, like, if we won the leg and, you know, like, or did really badass in Switzerland, like, we kind of felt like we came from behind, was able to do that in that vibrational state, we would be like, okay, imagine running up to the mat with Phil. So in real life doing it, it felt like a dream, because it felt like I was in my vision, you know?
It felt like you were in your vision.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was weird, because it was like, if you notice, like, I don't think we got emotional on the mat or any, you know, it's just kind of like,
This is
cool, like, this is what happened.
Yeah.
This has happened so many times. And it happened exactly like this, and like, cool.
Yeah.
What's next? Like, holy shit, I can't believe that worked. Like there's not that many opportunities we get to put things to the test in such a defined, condensed box, right? It's usually these like ongoing looping cycles of life, right? And there's all these different loops going on. So rarely are we in like one, you got no phone, no email, no kids, you're not talking to people, you're not text messaging, you're doing one thing, the Amazing Race. And there's a start line and a finish line. And so we got to like, just, it honestly, like, it felt like a 30-day psychedelic trip. It took a week of getting home to just kind of like come out of that space and be like, okay, like, did that really happened? Like, what is going on here?
It felt like a
wild.
dream. Even trying to describe it to our friends, our tribe,
But
it was
no.
literally like trying to describe a dream. Like, oh, I just
Yeah,
had the
yeah.
most vivid dream,
Yeah.
and then as you're trying to describe it, you're like, it's just not
Just
translating.
yeah,
You're just gonna have to
majority
watch
will
it.
know.
Yeah.
And then you watch it with like the dramatic background announcer, and you're like, that wasn't what it felt like either.
You're watching the 2% of
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you choose to show.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang.
And my last question is just like, we're here in Dallas, like we watched the finale with y'all. You brought us all together. Like, why was that important for you? We could have all just done our own thing. Like, why was it important to be together for you? Because you said it on the finish line, Matt. We're having it all together.
Yeah, I think I maintained a few friendships from the first time we did the race, and I don't know. I feel really strongly that so much of who we are is a combination of all the different experiences we've had in life, right? And this is such a profound experience that we've all had. And if you have really deep experiences, but then just leave it and don't really like fully integrate it, then it doesn't have quite as much impact. And so I was thinking, man, wouldn't it be cool if we got to all relive this thing together at the end and like really connect human to human so that we can build these like, lifelong friendships. And
We were in
so
the
I just thought
trenches
that'd be
together.
awesome.
Yeah,
You know?
really.
Yeah.
So that's what
Yeah.
it's like. It doesn't translate on TV as
No.
much, but you're in the trenches.
Yeah,
We all
people are
went to
literally like, do you
Peru
hang out with
together.
other teams? You're like,
You have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
only 10 hours in an airport every other day.
Yeah, so you have this experience.
Yeah.
There's a connection there that goes beyond words and
Yeah.
beyond what really anyone else can understand unless they've ran the race before
Right.
or done something like this before.
Right.
And it was really, our hearts were just wide open and it was a testament to how close our cast had become and how much everyone really did love each other, that people wanted to be here, that they wanted to be, because we had a couple people know, hey, do any of the other cast know who won? We're like, yeah, they were at the finish line. But it's
Seen the
almost
show?
like the question was, they seem really happy and everything's all
Yeah.
good, and like it's cool that you guys won or whatever, and so it made me reflect, like, people are happy that
Yeah.
we won,
We
and
are,
it
yeah.
just
Genuinely
feels
happy.
so
And that
good. I'm just
Yeah.
receiving that. So
it does. And I find myself like
Representing.
having to wrestle with that and like wrestle with the guilt that you guys didn't win or the guilt that Tyler and Corey didn't win, because I love you guys so much. I love them so much, and like that will creep up, and be like, man, it just sucks for them, because they were so awesome and they were so strong and they deserved it and they deserved it and they deserved it, and that's a practice to be like, they love you,
Mhm.
they accept you, they see you, and they are happy for you. It's
and that
like-
sometimes it's okay to be the protagonist, right?
Yeah.
That's
Because
Yeah.
that was also energy work we had to do when we realized about halfway through, we looked at each other and we're like, I think we might be the protagonist.
Yeah.
I'm not used to being the protagonist. Like
Yeah.
I think internally being good people, but like as an introvert and having sort of trust issues and it being hard to open up and allow people in you're misunderstood.
Yeah.
So even winning Miss Teen USA, there's not necessarily like everyone's happy for you. So when you
Yeah.
realize
Probably
like
quite the opposite.
That's not,
Yeah.
completely different space.
so when you realize that, wow, we're playing that part, and then we had to do the energy work of accepting that we're worthy
Yeah.
of being the protagonist.
Yeah.
Which you don't often realize that
That's
you've
a
got that
struggle
going
too.
on.
Yeah.
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 Dang. That's dang.
And it is a testament to who you are that everyone is so happy that they lost to you.
I was
You're like, okay, I'm okay with
I was
that.
after you got
Yeah.
across the finish line, I was just like in tears. I was like,
Yeah.
yo,
Yeah,
this
Floyd
is
does
your
not get
moment.
emotional a lot.
Not really, no. But I was
And
just,
he was tearing up last
yeah,
night.
it's just such an honor to get to know you. And
Yeah.
like, to all our fans, like Team Fun fans,
Yeah.
like y'all need to be calling it Christy.
There's a camera
fans.
there.
Like, oh, by the way.
Oh, what's that?
We were just hanging out. We didn't realize that this gets to
Yeah.
like now last forever.
Yeah. But yeah, seriously, just like we appreciate y'all so much. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for
So much.
yeah.
Love you
This
too.
is
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
really.
Congratulations.
It's such an honor
Thank
to
you.
be
Yeah.
on board with you guys.
Oh, you
Likewise.
too. Yeah.
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 And it'll
Huge
last.
fans.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't take compliments well.
Yeah.
It's hard,
Well,
right?
you can't come out.
It's
You
not
can believe it,
Yeah.
but it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard. But
Anyways.
yeah.
Cool.
Well, we'll let you get to your next tentative.
Yeah. And follow us.
Instagram.
Yes,
Go ahead.
follow us on Instagram, Christy Woods 1.
Boom, I'll put it right
Colin
here.
Gwynn. And check out colinandchristy.com. We've got a killer
Boom.
6-part video series. It's
Yes.
free.
Yeah.
And it's just walking people through, that are in relationship through some of the low-hanging fruit that really turn things around for us. And it's like well done, and I think it's like really good information, and it's free.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
totally
Anything
free.
these people have to say, you should probably just listen to it.
It's our dharma. It's our gratitude for getting to have this journey and have this arc. And we knew people would be wondering, like, what do you do, or well, what did you do? And
Give
so
us
this
the
video
details.
series,
Yeah.
it's the beginnings of, but it lays out a lot of that. So.
I think I just heard clicks.
Yep.
Awesome.
Market.
That was perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, we got this.